Welcome to another top 5, guys. The latest patch definitely shook up the meta quite a lot, and now we can really see what the best decks in Hearthstone are right now. So in this video I'm gonna give you 5 of the best decks, show you their mulligans, win rates, as well as some general tips, so you have a better idea of what you should be playing with, as well as what you're playing against. So if you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can sign for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is actually Pain Warlock, and I'm kinda surprised because honestly I haven't seen that much Pain Warlock, but this list has above 60% win rate as well as above 6,000 games, so it's definitely something to look out for. This particular list doesn't have any meaningful way of negating damage, but they can heal with the help of Popgar, a couple of Infernals, and that's about it. Nothing else really heals in this deck, everything else just damages. The list looks pretty standard. We are running a few new cards, including things like Kris Souvenir, which is actually pretty good tempo, but also quite dangerous quite quickly, because this thing only gives you +3, but it can deal well over 10 damage for your face, as long as the opponent doesn't deal with it quickly. We also have a couple of Fearless Flame Jugglers, which combo off extremely well with things like Spirit Bomb, but even with just 1 drops that deal 3 damage can also work pretty well. We also have the new Party Fiend, which is super good in the deck. And we're also running Party Planner Vuna, which doesn't see that much play usually, but she's definitely a decent inclusion. The Ziliax in here is gonna be using the nerfed module that costs 1 less, and also the +1/+1. And the rest of the deck you already know about. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show. Flood Paladin is not going to be your friend, but we're not seeing much of those anymore, so there's that. Some of the mages could be scary. And also Insanity Warlock, I've noticed, is not a very good matchup as long as the Insanity knows how to play. With DKs, it's going to be 50-50 in most cases, or you should be pretty favored. Mulligan-wise, you're looking for your good early game. And going first, here's what it looks like. Flame Imp and Party Fiend would be your best 1-drop minions. Mass Production is not bad. Imprisoned Horror is usually a keep going first and second. Elementium Geode is also pretty nice. Molten Giant, I'd say you have to have a pretty good hand already, like Flame Imp and Elemental Geode could be a good starting hand for a hand where you actually keep Molten Giant. Blood Treant ain't bad, Malefic Rook is pretty decent, and if you already are curving out well, Infernal can also be a keep. If you already have something like a Flame Imp or a Party Fiend, you could also consider keeping the Cursed Souvenir. When going second, it's not that much different, but here we can also see some other cards being a bit higher, like Ziliax, but for a Ziliax to be a keep, you definitely need to have at least a Party Fiend. Sheriff Barrowbrim could be a consideration going second, and I would also say Fearless Flame Juggler could also be a consideration, but be careful over keeping it. Cursed Souvenir not as hot going second, however. For other good Warlock decks, when I shared this top 5, I honestly thought it's gonna be Insanity Warlock, but as you can see, this deck has just way better stats. We have a couple of smaller sample size lists that are doing quite well, and honestly, in top 1000 Legend, I would definitely go with Insanity Warlock instead. But for Diamond Legend for the last 3 days, these are the stats, so definitely Pain Warlock takes the cake. We have a pretty populated Insanity Warlock here, sitting at 57%, definitely nothing to scoff at. And the rest is just iterations of those. There's also actually Hand Warlock, which is playable, but nowhere near the win rate the other two have. But if you want to be playing something a bit more control-y, I guess Hand Warlock is also out there. On the number 2 spot, we actually still have Handbuff Paladin doing quite well. Again, this is Diamond to Legend. I wouldn't really advise playing this in top 1000, but from Diamond to Legend, it's still definitely a pretty low skill cap deck where you could be climbing with ease. This list is still running the Custom Enforcer as well as Razor Scale, so I guess it's trying to play around Insanity Warlocks, Concierge Druids, and basically anybody who tries to be discovering extra cards that didn't start in their deck, but the rest is pretty standard stuff. This is the non-excavate variant, so you have a single self-seed hand in here. And we also have the new Sandcastle. The rest is very much standard stuff. The Ziliax is the power module plus the twin module, so you can really zerg the board nice and early in the mid game. The rest is really doesn't need any introduction. We've seen this deck plenty of times, so you know what it's all about. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show. Pain Warlock is going to be a problem, and so is Evolve Shaman, but everything else is pretty decent, so climbing shouldn't be an issue. As for the mulligan going first, you already know how it goes. You want your gold banner. Maggot is something I would keep if I already have a pretty good hand. Painter's Virtue is good, straight up keep. I'd say Instrument Deck is also a good keep, but if you already have the weapon, you might ditch the deck. Grip Street Outfitter is not something I like too much going first. There's just not that many minions you're buffing that way. Dagger's Plushie could be great in aggressive matchups. Drone Deconstructor is great all around. Toy Captain Terram if you already have a pretty good hand, I'd say. Audio Medic could be a consideration. And if you have a gold banner, holding onto a Righteous Protector can also be pretty good. As for on the coin, the situation is not that much different, but we can see Magata is dropping in popularity here, because you are going to have a bit more cards in hand. Honestly, I would consider the Grim Street Outfitter going second, because you are going to have extra cards this way, but the rest looks pretty much the same. Other good Pally decks would be still Flood Pally is out there, not as popular anymore, but still decently strong. The nerf to Ziliax definitely took a big hit to the deck. I've seen Lionessa Pally do somewhat well. Urban Pally still pretty crap, it seems. And yeah, Lionessa Pally is not even on the map right now. On the number 3 spot we have Dragon Druid, and this is the slow ramp Dragon Druid. Not really slow, it's actually tempo ramp Druid is what it is. But it's obviously not the Concierge variant is what I'm trying to say. And this deck, I gotta say, is one of the best decks even in Top Legend right now. It's super strong, super value oriented, very high rolly, and it's always enjoyable for the Druid to be playing with 12 mana when the opponent has something like 4. Definitely not something you're not used to seeing. It's just super strong. It can even take you to top 1000 legend with ease. So yeah, if you were enjoying this archetype, it's definitely a great deck to be climbing with. Nothing out of the ordinary in this one. We have a couple of new Sleep Under the Stars, which help you curve out a lot better, like giving you a couple of card draw, and then refreshing up to 6 mana very easily, being able to still have a pretty meaningful turn that turn. You have all the good ramp with New Heights, with Splish Splash, and we have the heavy hitters at the end, and the Ziliax here is the twin module, plus the perfect module, obviously. And yeah, definitely check out my guide and gameplay videos with this deck. It is very good. Matchup-wise, here's what it looks like. Pirate Demon Hunter, not your friend. Bane Warlock is also pretty problematic, as a Remy Priest as well, but everything else is bright green, so yeah, definitely give this deck a go if you still haven't. As for the mulligan, here's what it looks like going first. You obviously are going to be looking for your good ramp, and Splish Splash is your best ramp. Holding on to a second dragon is also pretty advisable. Don't overkeep too many dragons though, like the idea here is so you can actually activate your Splish Splash, so if you don't have Splish Splash already, just keeping one dragon is usually enough. If the dragon you decided to keep as a gift wrap, well, it's probably a good idea not to be playing it on turn 1, however, if that's your only dragon. New Heights is also pretty nice. Summer Flower, if you already have a good curve, could be a keep. And honestly, in certain cases, you could even hold on to Puppet Master Dorian if you have a good curve going, because coining this guy as soon as turn 3, very hard to deal with for the opponent, and a lot of people just concede insta when they see him. As for on the coin, it's not that much different. Here, even Faye is somewhat acceptable, but I would only keep her if I already have a Splish Splash, honestly. Like, that's the only reason why you would keep such a big card. Unless you already have, like, something like, let's say, Gift Wrap Whelp, Splish Splash, and Faye. That's gonna allow you to drop Faye a lot faster, like, literally at turn 5 Faye. Like, this get discounted by 2 by the 2 dragons, and you also have the coin and the ramp, so you will be getting to the Faye pretty quickly. So if you're against something like a Demon Hunter, I guess I can see that happening. Other than that, not that much different here. Don't overkeep Malfurion's Gift. It's your worst ramp apparently, and you could be using it for more swipes than anything else, so there's that. For other good Druid decks, we can also see Concierge Druid still doing quite well, honestly. It's not as popular anymore, however. I really believe it's still as strong as ever though, so I don't know about that. Maybe the meta shifted against it or something. Highlander Druid is also out there. Like, here's a list doing quite well, and the rest is just iterations of those 3, isn't it? On the number 4 spot, we can see Pirate Shaman still doing nice and good. This particular list is running a little bit of the Evolve action as well, in the form of a single copy of Wave of Nostalgia. It's also running the Horn of the Windlord, and in terms of increasing your damage for it, you have the Adrenaline Fiend, as well as couple of Turn the Tides, so you can definitely slap quite nicely with the Horn of the Windlord that way. In terms of your overload cards, we have a couple of Jam Sessions and a couple of Turn the Tides, so your Golganeth is gonna have stuff to be drawing for you. And as for the Pirate package, we have Treasure Distributor, Adrenaline Fiend, which is extremely powerful comboed with the weapon, like I said, especially if you have a location on the board, because that way you get even more damage out of it easily. Ziliax here is the Pylon module again and the -1 which got nerfed. And yeah, the rest is pretty standard stuff. You've seen this deck plenty of times nowadays. Carefree Cookie is pretty insane in the deck as well, as long as you don't get the frickin' Doomsayer out of it, that is. As for the matchups, you don't really have any bad ones, so another pretty good deck for climbing. Corpsicle Death Knight is gonna be a bit problematic, but everything else is a go. Mulligan-wise, going first, here's what the picture shows. Ziliax is pretty decent, especially if you have a Sigil of Skydiving. Patches is always going to be a no-brainer, same with Murloc Glowfin. Trusty Companion can be great, but make sure to already have a good one-drop to hold on to it. Gorgon Zormu is usually a no-brainer as well. Treasure Distributor is fine. And if the hand allows it, even a Carefree Cookie could be great. Like if you have a one-drop and Sigil of Skydiving, Cookie would be absolutely insane. Honestly, even just with a Sigil is going to be great. Shockhopper, apparently not your best one-drop to hold on to, but definitely not the worst. And you could actually hold this if you have the Trusty Companion as well, because this is going to allow you to actually draw your Backstage Bouncer, which is a pretty good tempo card as well. As for on the coin, here's what it looks like, and here Galganev becomes a lot more keepable as well, like coining this guy out could help you with some AoE action. Just don't forget that's gonna negate the first spell each turn, because the coin was the first spell that turn. The rest looks pretty similar though. Here, however, Treasure Distributor is not gonna be something you would like to be keeping as much, if at all. I would say Patches is still MVP, Murloc is fine, Carefree Cookie could still be a keep, especially with the Sigil again. Plenty of different Shaman decks out there, all revolving closely to this archetype, however. This is the list I show you, pretty good sample size, pretty good win rate. We can also see a more evolve-oriented Shaman list out there, which is also pretty fun. There's also Elemental Shaman still doing quite fine, and it's a super easy deck to be piloting pretty well, so there's that. And Highlander Shaman is also out there, even though it's not as amazing as the others. Razzle Dazzle Shaman is also out there, again, not great, so yeah, those would be your Shaman options. And lastly, we have Zarimi Priest still doing nice and good. I did show you a Zarimi Priest guide very recently. This is pretty much the exact same list, so you can definitely go ahead and check that one out. A lot can be said about this deck. It's definitely not easy to just get into, so definitely check out my detailed guide about it, as well as some coaching gameplay if you really want to know how to play this deck. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show right now. Pirate Demon Hunter is not going to be great. And we can also see Flood Paladin used to be bad. You don't see too many of those nowadays. The Shamans are usually not great, aside from Highlander, and Insanity and Warlock, also pretty strong stuff against you. Everything else is a go, however. Mulligan-wise, here's what the stats show. Going first, we can see that you're looking for the Whelp Wrangler, some of the good one-drops. Gorgon Zormu is usually a no-brainer. Crimson Clergy is insanely good. Scale Replica also acceptable, but not the best out of the bunch. Dreamboat can also be a keep, especially if you already have a Crimson Clergy. As for on the coin, here's what it looks like again. Both these two are still at the top. Your good one-drops are still out there. Definitely wouldn't hold on to Clay Matriarch, like what the hell is this even? Crimson Clergy is still fine, especially with the Dreamboat combo. And here you could also consider Funnel Cake, because you will be able to actually coin out stuff a bit quicker. Just don't forget, if you actually coin this on turn 2, it's not going to be giving you free mana to work with. It only restores mana crystals, and you only have 2 of them that turn. Other good Priest decks would be Overkill Priest is honestly the best deck in top 1000 Legend, perhaps. For Priest at least, it's definitely very hard to pilot. It's far from your traditional Hearthstone gameplay, but if you're up for the challenge, Overkill Priest is definitely something to try. Highlander Priest is also somewhat out there, but as you can see, the stats just don't back it up. That's about it for the top 5. Now let's check out the classes we haven't mentioned, and it's actually surprising we didn't mention Death Knight here. But as you can see, the first really solid deck is at 57% win rate right now, so definitely not the 58 or 60% win rate decks I've been showing you so far, so there's that. But yeah, Corpsicle Death Knight definitely has been pretty great right now with the help of the buffed Razzle Dazzler. It's pretty decent. We can also see all other sorts of iterations of it with pretty good sample size. There's also some Frost Death Knights out there, again with the Razzle Dazzler. Plague Death Knight is also supposedly out there, but honestly it's again pretty much Razzle Dazzler. And I've even seen Blood Decay doing great in top 1000 Legend. Here's what the list is looking like. It's a Highlander list, however. But it is running some of the good heavy hitters like Vampiric Blood. Yeah, there it is. And you also have a second copy of it in the ETC, which is pretty annoying to play against. With Demon Hunter right now, the Arana Demon Hunter seems to be doing best. We have several iterations of it. We can also see Just Pirate Demon Hunter is also up there. It's a bit more straightforward, but the win rate is also a bit lower. And those would be basically your two options for Demon Hunter right now. Hunter is still not doing that amazingly well. We can see Secret Hunter is farming some less experienced players. Also Spell Token Hunter is somewhat alright. And Amalgam Hunter is just not a deck for most people. Highlander Hunter seems to be pretty shit. For mages, Elemental Mage is still pretty fine. It's still a super cheap deck and also super easy to pilot decently well. We can also see no minion mages, above 50%, but nothing to write home about. Big Spell Mage is also apparently playable, and the rest are under 50, so probably best stay away from them. For rogues, Sonya Miracle Rogue is actually an amazing deck in top 1000 Legend, but it's far from a simple deck to be piloting well. I don't even think this is the best deck in top 1000, it looks kind of weird. Like, the main win condition with that one is you just make a bunch of Griftas and you get a ton of 6 damage to the face elixirs out of him. But it's definitely a very complicated deck with a lot of APM, and you gotta really know how to pull that one off, so wouldn't recommend for Diamond to Legend players. This other Miracle Rogue apparently is also playable, but just barely, and again pretty high skill cap I'd say. And Mining Rogue is under 50% nowadays. I haven't seen much of it in top 1000 either, so it must be not as good anymore. And lastly we have Warrior, and we can see Highlander Warrior seems to be the best bet. Virus Warrior is still above 50, but just barely, and same can be said for Odin Warrior. Well, not really, it's under 50, so same cannot be said. I have seen this deck doing well in top 1000, so you can check out my guide about it if you want to give it a go, but the stats are not supporting it, so craft with caution. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing in the meta, so you can hit easy legend in Hearthstone. If you enjoyed the video and like what I'm doing, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to get time for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.